Yep.
Right. I think we're live this morning on Facebook. Good morning, everyone.
Or afternoon.
Or afternoon.
Kim Hansen, and I've got Oscar Valencia and Bonnie Bonadeo on this morning on your lovely Monday morning. If you're on the East Coast, what time is it there? 1 o'clock, Bonnie?
Yep, we're at 1 o'clock.
So it's not morning. It's afternoon.
Nor here. It's 12:15 here too.
Yeah, and I'm in LA. Where are you, Oscar?
Oklahoma.
Oscar's in Oklahoma. Where are you, Bonnie?
I'm in Atlanta.
So we've got all three time zones represented here. How fun! So this morning we're going to be
nation.
Huh?
We're across the nation.
We are. This morning we're going to be talking about hiring. And I want you all to know that if you have questions, comments, anything to add to our talk this morning, we are talking about hiring, and it is one of the top 5 pain points for many organizations, not just salons, but organizations as a whole, understanding who you want to bring into your world. So please join us this morning. We're going to be on for, I don't know, anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. So we're going to be on for a long time. So if you can hang on with us, we'll keep talking until you leave us. And all right, you guys, what's your experience with hiring?
Well, my experience kind of comes more from the clients that I'm coaching and the struggles that they had. But, coming from a corporate background myself and having to hire people and, find the right person, I get that this is probably one of the most frustrating things about being a business owner is because, it takes time sorting through, finding the ideal person, being able to take the time to interview them. And then, of course, there's always that very elusive thing called training them to succeed. So I think that we need to probably just talk about from that very beginning part. Why do they think they need somebody? What is the impact it's going to make on their business to have somebody new in the organization? Is it replacing somebody, or is it because there's growth and they need to, add more teammates? And then I think we should talk about the logistics, the processes of really hiring great. And then I think we'll go from there. And I have a feeling we're going to get some questions today, which will be great.
I would love questions. And I also think that I would love some thumbs up and likes too. How about you guys?
Yep.
I'll take some hearts, thanks.
Hearts. Give us some love this morning. Oscar, what's your experience?
Along with Bonnie, it's mostly from the standpoint of who I've coached in the last several years. I haven't done a lot of hiring for, a lot of years from my family salon when I used to do the hiring there. However, spent many years doing that, but have more lived the frustration of a lot of my clients in their challenges of hiring, from the lack of people that are even putting in applications, and then from the ones that do, finding any kind of cream in that crop. And their challenges also with some of the millennial situation and their conversations that they create in their heads about that. And so there's a lot going on, and I think there's a lot of answers to improve the outcomes that people are or are not getting with their current situations.
And I agree with both of you. I think you guys brought up some great points. I also want to add to that. I know I come at it from both a coach and a salon owner, because I hired for 21 years. And at the end there, I had quite a large staff. And one of the things that I know for myself and also from the people that I coach is there's a sense of urgency sometimes, especially if you have a walkout or a couple people leave at one time, which happens, you know, in every salon. If you haven't had a walkout or if you haven't had a group of people leave at this point,
you're not doing it right.
It's only a matter of time. Yes.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Correct.
And so if you've had that, don't feel bad. Look at it as an opportunity to begin to hire new people and the people and the culture that you really, really want. But there's a sense of urgency that I notice, which puts you in sort of almost panic mode. Like, I've got to fill these chairs. It's dead in here. I hear it from my coaching clients that have had people leave. Because oddly enough, I've had several coaching clients hire me right after a walkout.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And there's this panic, you know, that I've got to hire people. I've got to get bodies in here. It's dead in here. There's no energy in here. So I want to get people out of that panic mode. And I that's kind of what I want to talk about, and into thinking mode and creating the salon and the staff that you really, really want to create.
Desperation versus inspiration.
And that's exactly it, Oscar. Desperation versus inspiration. So we've got a couple of people on watching. We've got Penny watching. We've got Scott watching. We've got Brittany watching. We've got Sandra watching. So I want to say hi to everyone. Take a minute, please, guys. If you have any questions or comments for us, we've got 3 coaches here, and we don't know everything. So,
but between all of us, we could.
Yeah. It's 3 masterminds working together. So we can go.
Real quick side note, if I may, you know, I learned a little phrase from a mentor of mine, and she speaks this sentence, and it's just lived with me ever since, that intelligence lives in the room. Mm-hmm. And it's a great philosophy, especially us as coaches and trainers, when we're in front of the masses, to instead of us just giving out information, it's out there amongst us a lot of times. If we pull and direct, we all get there well.
And even the people that are on watching us, it's mastermind as well. So we want to hear what you got to say. So anyway, so we've got all these problems. We've identified some problems. What are the solutions?
Ladies first.
All right. Well, I am happy to start here. I always think, and I loved the way you brought up the millennial piece. And I know that we're going to tap into that conversation probably with diligence today. But my take on that whole thing is just like any generation, there's going to be nuances that are going to promote some differences in everything. But here's what I say is you have to really define your purpose as to why you're hiring. Is it because you're busy and you need to fill chairs because you have clients that can't get into your business? Is it because you just lost somebody and you need to replace them? Is it because you just expanded and now you have 2 or 3 or more open stations available because you've created some kind of an expansion? And if you are clear about the 3 kind of what I consider to be like the 3 points of a triangle, one is your brand, who you are. Who are you as a business? Because how are you going to sell your business to this person you're potentially interviewing if you're not even clear who you are? The second, of course, is what's your culture? And your culture and your brand can sometimes be the same, but in most cases they differ just a little bit. And the culture is how other people see you. Your brand could be how I see myself and how I create the leadership within my organization. But the culture could be very different. And I know that Oscar, you chatted on this as well, but culture could be how others see you. And that's part of that perception that you have to live within. The third thing is, who's your clients? Who is your ideal client that walks in the door, spends the maximum amount of money with you, and stays with you the longest amount of time? And when you're really clear on those three things, then finding your perfect provider is going to be a whole lot easier. And I think we'll tap into some of that millennial stuff just in a little bit, though. But that's kind of my foundation to start with. Know your brand, know your culture, know who your ideal client is, then find the provider that fits those 3 points.
I think while we're on the subject of millennials, and I would love it if some millennials who are watching chimed in. I know Brittany's watching. I know she's a millennial. I think that there is, and we were talking about this in one of the other masterminds, old school leadership versus new school leadership. And with the new school leadership, I think the millennials really sort of drove this new school leadership, and it's much more of authenticity, leading with authenticity instead of leading with, manipulation and these are your performance. And if you do this for us, you're going to get that. It's more of an inspirational form of leadership. So I think that when you're hiring, that needs to be portrayed. Your type of leadership, authenticity, genuine, because we need to attract the right people. Mm-hmm. It's really about what you're talking about, Bonnie, is drilling down on, who follows you, what they think of you, and what you think of your own brand. That's what you were talking about, and understanding it from all sides, right? And then hiring from that standpoint. And I heard this one time, if you want to know what your brand is, just ask someone.
Well, I say that from a point of culture, because I really think people need to understand and be really clear on what their brand is. But if you want to know what the culture is of your location, ask someone is a great one. And it's true. I think people kind of get very confused by that. And, I hate to even have a further millennial conversation. I don't know where you guys stand on all of this, but I can tell you that, finding the right person when you're very clear on who that is doesn't matter what generation they're from.
Correct.
Making sure that you are providing them access to be successful doesn't matter what generation they're from. But there is kind of having an understanding. If your clientele is maybe, mainly baby boomers, and they are, that's the clientele you have, there's going to be some training required if you're hiring millennials, which are notoriously who we're hiring, because that's who's available to grow with us in our organizations. That the right training has to be put in place, the right standards, the right, expectations have to be put in place in order for them to be successful as well.
I've got a comment here from Brittany, who says, I'm speaking for myself. I align with people who have a purpose. I like money, obviously, but money is a perk to doing what I love. I want to serve people, not only myself.
That's great. That's
so
great.
I think
I'm assuming Brittany is a millennial, and that's kind of her philosophy.
And I think that's the philosophy that a lot of people have been reiterating as far as leading millennials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, listen, at the end of the day, and this, both you guys know this very well, because we also talk on leadership approach as coaches, but at the end of the day, people want to be valued, appreciated, and respected. That's what they want. So that includes your staff, and it includes your customers. So that's always the foundation that we want to work from, is to be valued, respected, and appreciated.
Yeah.
And that's what we want, right? So it
Exactly.
makes sense that that's what we want to give as well. Yeah, so I have this sort of 12-point checklist. So I'm going to good hiring practices. And going back to what Bonnie was saying, the first one is manifest your dream team. What qualities that you want to advocate, the culture you want to create a checklist, an actual checklist of character qualities you want and do not want, that you want and do not want on your team. Like actually write it down and manifest that to happen, and keep this checklist close to you and look at it often to make sure that you are manifesting it. And when you're doing your hiring, make sure to keep that checklist and start checking those qualities off.
Very good.
So Oscar, you've been pretty quiet.
I thought you were going to go through your checklist.
Oh, well, I don't want to go through my whole checklist.
Oh, you said I have a 12-point, and I was like, go, girl.
Oh, no, I'll just go, I'll hit bullet points one at a time.
All right, well, give us one of them, and then we've got Jeff standing by too that we want to bring in. He's one of the salon owners that I think he has an interesting philosophy on the whole hiring process. But I want to hear one of your checklists. Give us one at least.
So the second one is advertise your results.
Yeah. So what does that mean?
So prior to posting any job description, you want a detailed overview of what winning looks like on your team. Because, as Brittany says, and I think we all want to win, right? We all want to be on the winning team, and even if we're on, Bad News Bears team, that we're all sort of like misfits coming together. In the end, we all want to win. That's the kind of stories everybody loves, right? Woo, victory.
The underdog.
The underdog. So that's important too, when you're writing your job descriptions and you're putting it out there on Indeed or LinkedIn or Facebook groups local Facebook groups or whatever you have on your website. You put it on your website. You want to paint the picture of because we want to attract people.
Right.
So that's another one. And then of course, get referrals. Everybody knows that one. And then the fourth would be a 30-minute phone interview. So I see a lot of people, who do an immediate interview, or grant an immediate interview. And so before that, I think it's, to just do a 30-minute interview. Hey there, Jeff. I'm going to unmute you here.
What's
All
up?
right.
Hey, how are you, brother?
Good.
So before we go on, we've got Jeff South in the house. And Jeff, you're a salon owner. We're talking about hiring. So why don't you tell everybody who you are first?
I'm Jeff South. I've got a salon just outside of Atlanta called Intrigue Salon. I think it's successful. We see about 150 people a day, clients a day. Got a great team, a long-lasting team too. It's not a lot of in and out, and do very well. Education's key. And I think I didn't get the very beginning of your process here, but I'll tell you, education, if you're interviewing, gravitate toward those that want education, and you'll succeed. You'll have the right people.
So explain a little bit of that, Jeff, education. Explain what you were talking about. Can you go a little further into that?
Yeah, I guess it's been about 10 years ago, we really embraced education, and that's classes every week and continual education. A friend of mine, Nick DeRojo, he got in my head and made me think education. That's the key. Don't worry about getting clients. Don't worry about team members coming in. I mean, you'll have those if you have education. He was completely right. So we've gotten a really great culture built around that. And as far as people coming in and interviewing, I think schools need to teach how to interview, because I would have been if you would have interviewed me, any of y'all would think I'm not hiring this guy. No way. I was probably nervous as hell back then. And, so now I pretty much know if I want to hire you right away to see if you fit that personality, because you can train skill. You can't train passion and culture and kindness. You kind of know instantly if you like somebody or not. And I think the clients think the same thing. And we pick up on things just quickly. Like if you come in, you smell like a cigarette, or you sloppy. If you're going in for just to go grab an application or to say hello, we look at things like, do you know about our salon at all? Did you do any research at all? Did you spend like 5 minutes in your car before you walked in? And a lot go, well, I wasn't really planning to interview today, but you are. We're always interviewing. I'm always interviewing when I'm out. I'm interviewing, with everybody to try to get great talent in my place. And I'm trying to find the right team members for the future. And if they're not right for me, I'm training them. When someone comes in for an interview with us, I tell them the questions to ask when they go to salons. Is there a clear path to success? When do you get, an increase in salary? Is it some obscure thing just because I like you more than this person, you get that? Or is it set? What's education, written down education program? How much is actually written down? How do I take off? What happens when I take off? You got to have a clear path to success. And plus, I've got to be friendly all along that. And I'm not hiring somebody, because you had mentioned something, Kim, earlier. You kind of do that interview. It's fairly quick. And I want to know a little bit about you. I know if I like you or not. And I trust some other team members that feel the same as I. But then you come in and work for a week. That's it. Are you going to come in and are you going to be tired after 1 hour and sit down, or not pick up a broom and help somebody? If you can't stand up for an hour, you're in the wrong business. Yeah. I want to see that energy level. Don't you think, Oscar? What I mean.
Get ready for those 12 hours, 13 hours.
Yeah. And after that week, and after that year of training, additional training, you're going to be fully booked. Boom. That's it. Great career.
But you know what I love about what Jeff tells me at times? He'll say, oh no, I've got some interviews today. And then I'll say, oh, do you have some open opportunities? And he says, no, but we never don't take the opportunity to still brand our salon when it does work out for them. So who knows, when you have an open spot, now you've got all these people that were wanting to be in your space kind of on standby. So will you share with us a little bit more about that you don't just wait for an open spot?
No, you never know, because some will go away and they'll end up coming back. We never hire from one of our kind of partner salons in the city of Atlanta. It's the greatest hair city in the world, I think. But it's a great, and Bonnie's exactly right. You keep that conversation always open, always open. If it's on Facebook, someone moves up to New York or Los Angeles or wherever, a lot of times people come back to Atlanta. We want to have that connection. If not for them working at the salon, just to be part of the community more, or education, we stay involved with that. I think another important key is, anyone that comes in always gets a tour. I don't care if they smell like they've smoked 50 cigarettes when they're outside and walk in, and look terrible. They're going to get the respect and a tour, and we'll just, lightly decline any further action. But nevertheless, everyone gets a tour. Every manufacturer gets a tour. Every guest gets a tour. Every potential employee gets a tour. But we always keep that door open. I call it a crack in the veneer.
I love that. If I could piggyback on Jeff about always be interviewing, and the respect that, we might not have an open chair available at the moment, or treatment room, etc. But when you actually get to meet somebody that otherwise you would not have, because it's not open season at the moment, and you meet this rock star that you just know, I will find a position for you. We'll find a way to get you started and get you in. Because when talent like that does happen to come along, and if you weren't ready, my motto is luck is being prepared for opportunity. And sometimes those opportunities come by, but if we're not ready for them, then they're gone in a second. Moments of magic are only a moment.
That's so true.
Yeah. And Jeff, you talked about something else that I think I think it would be powerful for you to share a little bit more on. When you talked about how you don't hire from other salons in the city, like you guys, listen, this should be a pact across the nation, but in Atlanta, because it's a very tight hair community, you all have a pact amongst each other that if somebody comes in to interview, tell us what the process is with that particular approach.
Well, in Atlanta, and I know there's some other cities too, and other relationships. I'm in an organization called Into Coiffure, and I'm honored to be a part of that, and I'm honored to be a part of the board of that. And that's one aspect, that you just don't hire from your friends' salons, and the salons in your club is what we call it. But in Atlanta, we've done that well before we were involved in that, and that was kind of a rule. But what we do, if someone comes in, I'm not saying it never happens. It may happen once in a while, but I'm going to call a friend. Can I tell an example? So
yeah.
And I'll show you how a relationship can be built upon this. So I've got a friend, Candy Shaw, and you may have heard of her. I'm sure, Oscar, you're from here, and Kim, Bonnie, of course. But years ago, there was someone that worked at her salon, and he, for certain reasons, whatever, he didn't want to work there anymore. And at my salon, I'm not looking to get clients. That's the beauty of things. If you've got a busy salon, you're not trying to get an employee to build clients. And this was a very seasoned hairdresser. He did great work, very polite. It's like the ideal employee. So I'm nervous, but I know the right thing to do is to call her, right? I had no relationship with her at all, but I knew the right thing. So I called and I left a message. And then anyway, she called back that night. Hi, I'm Candy. I said, well, I'm Jeff. Well, this guy wants to come work for me. And she goes, yeah, he is a really great employee. And it's really awesome that you're calling me. And, sometimes it's just not the right place. No matter how great you are, it's just not the right time and the place for you. She goes, you're welcome to hiring. And it's great. And I hope you won't go and try to recruit all of our customers, things like that. I said, no, that's not even part of it. I don't want one client. We're not going to post on Facebook where he is, nothing like that. Anyway, so he comes and works for me, right? And does a great job. And about a year and a half later, he decided he wanted to go back. So you know what? She called me and asked me the same thing. And that was about 10 years ago or 15 years ago, maybe. But we've been the best of friends ever since, with just the best respect. And I've got that with many others in Atlanta too. We'll call. We're never going to say, no, you can't do that. Or that's, you can't do that. You'd be terrible if you do that. Sometimes it kind of hurts a little bit, but it's okay. I'd rather someone go to a friend's salon than someone that's not a friend. And something that I heard the other day too is, hairdressers can come and go a lot, but the owners will always be there.
Yeah. To take that spin a slightly different way, at my salon in San Diego years ago, I had a similar situation, but it was somebody that was with us for many years. And sometimes people grow apart, grow differently, come back. We're like trees and branches. And at some point it gets too far apart. And it was not a comfortable situation for them or I anymore. But the way they were kind of turning in their career and their interest, I knew my buddy's salon would be like the perfect place for them. And I had a meeting with this person up in the office and just straight out said, my sense is, I don't want to make it up, I just want to do a check-in. And it's okay if you are, but are you looking to possibly go somewhere else? And he says, to be truthful, yes, I think I am. I said, do you have some places in mind? He said, I have a couple. I said, is this one on your list? And he says, you know what? I've heard about it. I haven't checked it out. I don't know them that well. I said, do me a favor. I know they're looking, and I think this is your ideal environment. And I love you. I'd love to work with you again. My door is always open. However, if you're looking for a change, I think this might be the direction that you're feeling and moving towards. And it was a win-win. And a similar situation, about 7 years later after working there, he was like, I might want to come back. And we were at a whole different place in the salon and moving into a different structure. So it just didn't work out anyways. But yeah, you know, you got to stay in that community because I don't care how big your town is, it's this big. It's small.
Mhm.
Exactly.
That's true.
I think that is really true too. And, you know, kind of a funny story. You know, I'm, excuse me, I'm in LA. So I'm going to be quite honest with you, Jeff. LA is not like Atlanta.
I know.
We are not friends here.
No Southern hospitality, just Southern.
I would bet, because a lot of people say that, same in New York, but I bet they want to be.
Okay.
Yeah, good
But
point.
here's my story going full circle. I'm friends with Aveda salon owners. And then because the network within Aveda is very strong. However, generally, Aveda didn't place us right next to each other, right? But then they started to. And so there was a particular salon that was actually my old salon. And I sold it and opened another salon. And then that owner sold it to another person. And they were 2 miles away from us and very competitive with us. And I found that my team actually held it over my head. And it was very frustrating. So I really started looking at that salon as my competition because it was my old location. And it was another Aveda salon, you know, with same manufacturer. And it was very set up very similar to mine. So long story short, when I ended up closing, half of my team went there and half of my team went to another Aveda salon that's not that far from me. And recently I started coaching the salon owner that was in competition with me.
That's awesome.
And, you know, it's interesting because she had half my team in her salon. So I know none of them are there anymore. She ended up firing them all. But it's kind of like, well, I followed you and I followed your lead and then you're not there anymore. So now I got to hire you.
Yeah, that's neat.
So but going full circle, you know, when I get to know this salon owner, I wish we would have been friends all along. That to your point, I wish it would have been so less stressful for both of us had she been able to call me and say, hey, I got this girl, she's coming to interview with me and blah, 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 blah. And if we would have worked together and I wouldn't have felt threatened, we could have worked together in that, you know, almost like when we were talking the last time I had a coaching call with her, I said, you know, it would even have been great to, you know, merge our salons at some point and actually work together because we were just 2 miles away. We probably would have been even more successful. And so in LA, there's this huge competition because there's so many salons. And I find that there are some areas like Atlanta, like Ohio for some reason is another area where people are kind of friendly. And you have a much more successful salon culture in those areas because salon owners are supportive of each other. So I think you bring a fantastic point.
I know that there was some concern too with, you know, a lot of suites opening up in different locations and major cities, obviously, and sneaky practices for them to be, you know, tapping into some high level talent. So they're going through social media to kind of find those, you know, those hot young millennials that are good on social media that look like they're doing a great job and kind of recruiting them through social media.
Insta-famers.
Yeah. What do you guys have to say about that? I mean, that kind of goes against everything that we've just said, like respect your fellow. There's plenty of people to go around. And sometimes you're right, like as Jeff said, you're not at the right place at the right time, and things just don't always work out.
So your specific question is our thoughts and feelings around suites, kind of grabbing some of the cream of the crop?
And it doesn't even have to be suites in general, but just kind of like looking at, some of these other talents on there and then trying to directly recruit them through social media practices.
I think if somebody's truly, truly happy, feels stable, feels part of a team, something bigger than themselves, has support in their path to success, and really understands the facts of bottom line, if they're that, they're not leaving. Yeah. I think that the uninformed fully, I think the emotional reactors might run and jump ship for a minute to a rude awakening in a few months or weeks sometimes. But and yet it's tough to hold on to that because that's our base, that's our company, and our revenue as a whole to keep mothership alive. And each one of those affect us if they leave. But if we can create that culture on the consistent basis of really creating that team environment, the percentage is a much lesser bottom funnel that will go and explore, and the nucleus stays intact. Coming from a sports background, no team I've ever been on has remained that entire team for 10 years straight. There's a body here and there that are switched and traded and whatnot throughout, just like business too. It's not, people will come and go. We're not going to not have that. It's just a matter of, can we control that percentage to a much lesser degree?
Yeah, and Kim, to your point too, they've got the community. I don't know who said it, but the Instagrators, Oscar said.
The famers.
They have a community, but it's spread out over the entire United States. It's not, when I'm saying community, I'm talking more localized community.
Correct.
And that makes a big difference. But, I can pretty much hire anybody. I mean, you can hire, I've heard it all. You can say you don't have to pay, on some sweet places. You're not going to have to pay taxes. You're going to make a gazillion dollars. Your owner's been stealing from you. And you're beautiful too. I'd love to use you in a photo shoot. Can we use you in a photo shoot and take pictures of you? And we've gotten you by private messaging through Facebook. We all know that. It's going to be awesome. We work with a big manufacturer. We're going to get you on the show circuit. You're going to be in front of thousands of people. We're going to help you get your stuff out there. And I'm going to give you a bonus of $50,000, $20,000 after you're with me for 5 years. I mean, it's all out there, right? It's easy. I could say, Oscar, hey, you want to come work for me? I'll give you $3 million. Start tomorrow.
For that,
you can still do exactly what you're doing. It's easy. Yeah. It's really easy to hire somebody.
$30 million.
And the younger's easier, And that's just a shame. But to your point is, that's why the schools have to train, and we have to get out on the streets, in these schools and explain to students before they're graduating, this is the reality of it. Sure, you can be a platform artist, but how many do you really know that are out there, and how much do they really make? And explain to them how much they can make and what they can do in a salon. It's a big part, the questions to ask, and get the interview questions.
Perfect. Well, what else do you talk about for hiring then, Kim? What are some really good key points that you want to bring back into the hiring conversation?
Well, I really want to touch on what Oscar said too. He talked about security and growth, and I think that talking specifically about the salon suites or booth renter or chair renter or whatever the heck you want to call it. I have really watched for the last several years their marketing, and I made a post about it, I think last Friday, and I actually, I pulled out exactly what because I get their emails because I want to know what they're doing. Because, the best, you always keep your enemies close, right? Not to say that suite renters are my enemies, because honestly, they aren't. But I want to know what they're doing. So they're always playing on this one theme, freedom of creation. Mm. It's this one thing, freedom. And freedom of creation and freedom to build your own culture and freedom of growth and freedom from the man, or whatever the heck you want to call it. And so there's this primary message that they really play on, which is in a very emotional message. And we as hairdressers, or in this hairdresser community of ours, we are very emotional people. So I'm sure their marketing people are highly, highly paid to develop and I'm sure they know exactly what brings us in. So Oscar said something that's really, really great, in that you want to be able to provide security, and you want to be able to provide growth, and you want to be able to provide not freedom, but the ability to lift people up and to give them a voice so they can participate in the creation of the salon. I know that that's sort of in my team, that's one of the things that I really did. For a while, I tried to do like a little special group of the leadership team. And then I realized that really separated people. And then all the underlings, so to speak, wanted to know what we were talking about over here. So then I was like, well, let's get rid of that and let's just invite everyone in. And I heard a long time ago that actually it was at a serious business conference several years ago, that Nike had a like a mastermind kind of thing going on for development. And they would invite people from all over the office, their corporate offices. And so there was the guy from the mailroom, and they asked him, what do you think to this mailroom guy? And he says, well, I don't know. You guys are all talking about creating these really fancy shoes. I just want something that doesn't feel like I have a shoe on, because I'm walking all the time as a mailroom guy. So what did they do? They created the Nike Free. And that was, I think, their biggest, highest grossing shoe to date is the Nike Free. And it just branched off.
Jordans, baby.
What is?
Jordans are the highest, believe me.
Okay, well, Nike Free, I mean, if you go in people's closet, a lot of people have a Nike Free shoe.
Correct.
And there's all different brands of Nike Free shoes now. But the point that I'm making is that even our interns, everybody has ideas. And that's what Sola Salon plays on, that you can create your own thing. But if we brought people in and we offered them growth, security, and a voice, that's pretty hard to fight against, I think.
I think to expand on that, when I was talking at the beginning about understanding the personalities and the distinctions of those that come in, not everything and everybody in every salon is a fit for everybody. And it's understanding that, again, coming back to my sports analogies, you have guys that are attracted to golf, a single man sport, them against the course and the competition. Tennis and singles, it's them against the other opponent. But then you have your greater team sports that are multiple people, and each person has their task, job, and responsibilities to achieve the win, aka success. And I think I'd like for us to get back to the actual how do we hire these people and get them into our business versus what are the obstacles and threats out there. And I think what's important to when we do bring and get the nucleus of our team and continue to build that we focus not just on education, because that is the ground level and the building blocks for everything, like Jeff and everybody has said. But I think what people don't necessarily work on is being a team and a better team and better teammates once they're there. I think sometimes ownerships, think build it and they will come. Well, now I have 8 people, now I have 22 people, 16 people. I have a team, but they don't work on that as a team and being a team. And I think there's ways that's what can keep it together long-term and sustainable.
No, I agree. But so now we've talked for quite a while about problems and stuff, and how we start manifesting, but how do we manifest this dream team? How do we bring in the people? Jeff touched on it with he's always interviewing. I want to add to that too, that you're not always interviewing in your salon, you're always interviewing outside of your salon. And a lot of people, my salon had 49%, 49% of our gross sales were in retail. And a lot of people want to know how I did that. A, I listened to my team, and B, I hired front desk people that weren't just front desk people. And how I found those people is I went out and looked for them. I went to Nordstrom. I would go to the Nordstrom counters, and if there was people, and I would get my makeup done, and I would be interviewing them while I was getting my makeup done, or they were talking to me about my mascara or putting a lipstick on me. The other place that I love to hire people from is Starbucks. Because we were a highly systemized salon. I knew that we were very role oriented. And so Starbucks people, I targeted Starbucks because they are highly systematic and they're trained that way. So when they come into my salon and I hire them, they're already sort of trained to be what I want them to be. So when Jeff said he's always interviewing, I want to extend that to I was always interviewing all the time, whether I was out for dinner or if I was at a show. I've hired people in education classes. I started up conversations. I hired a fantastic educator from a class that I was actually in, who just happened to need a job. So we think in terms of like creating an ad and putting it on an Indeed, but we have to think, to know who we want and to know our culture, as Bonnie said, and to know our client and to know our brand, and then target those places and always look for people.
So what are some of your interview processes, Jeff and Bonnie and Kim, when you're actually starting the process within the salon, or if your first interviews at the coffee shop, et cetera? What are some of your questions and processes you guys do, please?
So
if they come in my salon, generally they don't need to make an appointment to come in to fill out an application. The door's always open for that. And we'll take just the application. If by some miracle that Casey, my manager, is available and I may be available or not, we may ask those questions right then. But we look at that, then we get them to come back in for about 30 minutes and ask questions like, where would you like to see yourself? I want to know a little bit of history. I found that if you're from an entrepreneurial family, or if you worked at a restaurant, a bar, Starbucks, there's somebody right now I want to hire at Starbucks. This guy's amazing. I want to know those kind of things. I want to know if I like you or not, and then that's when we set up that next interview where they come in and stay for a full day or a week. The questions like, where would you like to see yourself in the future? What are your interests? When you're going to ask interests too, are they going to talk about tennis and golf? Are they going to talk about hair color and hair cutting? So you learn a lot about that. Education. What other educational classes have you been to? We hire a lot of people out of schools. We don't really get many from salons. So we're asking more questions like that.
And for yourself and your culture and system, Jeff, it's the first time they come in for the 30-minute, and then the second time you invite them back for longer or a day or.
We'll ask them for one day, and then we'll jump into a week after that.
And then after that, is that the decision time?
Right.
Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually in that first week, Oscar, we'll know around then. So we may say, we'd like to offer you the job after 2 days or 3 days. So the faster we can get people in, the better it is.
And do you have some sort of formal structure where they're kind of going through the gauntlet, so to speak? Are there some filters between you and them as far as them getting to interact with other team members, and then you get their feelings?
What we do is when you're an assistant at our salon, you'll assist 1 or 2 people specifically.
Okay.
So you're not interviewing with the entire team, but you're being a general assistant for everybody for that 1 or 2 or 3 days, just seeing what your capabilities are. If you're hopping up, if you're interested in shampooing and helping people, are you just, are you into learning, and how you relate to that master designer that you're going to be pretty much their personal assistant for a year, or 8 months minimally.
It's been interesting because I've been coaching this young gal. I think she's 24. She's one of my old coaching clients' daughters who's just getting ready to graduate next month. They're in Atlanta, and her mom hired me to coach her because they were kind of at an impasse. I said, coach her or raise her?
Yeah.
And and I got to go through the whole interview process with her, and I worked with her to find the salon that best served her needs in the bigger picture of her journey. And so she just recently started a salon there a couple weeks ago, and she's kind of blowing me away and blowing them away. Some of the stuff she's showing initiative in that your normal young assistant just doesn't do quite yet.
It's all knowing setting up those expectations. We go through that handbook. It's very clear all the way through. At least we know they've read that handbook at least one time, those expectations. This is what we expect. This is the rules. This is your date. Everything is there laid out. Yeah. And we've tweaked that over years and years. So it's just pretty clear and very simple.
And that's the biggest thing, I think, when kind of the whole concept of hiring, and Bonnie's touched on it at the beginning, is that clarity component. You were talking about the clarity and defining the why of you feel you need to hire somebody, and the culture, and then who is your best ideal client. And I think it's, you understanding the, characteristics of this ideal potential new hire and how they'll be a fit amongst the group. But clarity is the biggest thing, because I know that we all know people that are hiring so out of desperation. And like you always talk, Kim, too, about, we're just filling chairs versus creating an educational company.
Yeah, that's, I think, one of the biggest, Gary Call always says that when I got into my head, and you said it too, maybe not in exactly this way, but when I got in my head that I was an education company and not a hiring company, everything changed.
Correct.
So the other thing too, I have this, and for anybody who wants it, that I have I'll see if I can post it in the comments too, a 12-point checklist that is pretty cool, actually, if I do say so myself, on how to hire. But another thing too is the resume and reference. And I don't know about you guys, but there was a time when, I'm sure, Jeff, I don't know if you get up resumes all the time, but we used to get resumes all the time. And part of that was because we were a pretty well-known salon in the area. And I had a relationship with a cosmetology school. And our website, we lived on Google. So, we would come up in a lot of Google searches. So when we get resumes in, my process, and Oscar, you asked about an actual process of hiring. So my process was developed over a long period of time. It did not happen overnight. I started with a 30-minute interview if I didn't already know them. Sometimes, honestly, it would be a 5-minute interview. I would have my idea of what I wanted, and then in that interview, I would ask specific questions. And if it didn't roll out the way I wanted it to, I would just say, thank you, I'll get back to you. If it did, I would have them come in for an interview. But I would also ask them at that interview, if I could check their references prior to them coming in. And this is why this is important.
You don't need to come in at all today, sir.
No. Because I believe that everybody has a rebuttal. And if you check their references between the phone interview and the actual one-on-one interview, you provide them an opportunity to rebut what was said about them, if anything. Most employers just, don't say much, most previous employers. And there's a legal issue there a lot of the times. But if you ask an ex-employer, are they eligible for rehire, and they say no, a lot of people will just say that because they don't want to get into legal trouble. So then that's a conversation that you can have in an interview, where you're allowing somebody to rebut why they didn't get. And this is when looking at, we were talking last week, Oscar, about listening. And this is when we listen in an interview, we need to listen to the whole body, not just what's coming out of the mouth. We need to see their comfort level. We need to see if they're looking at us in the eyes. All of those nonverbal actions are really important in an interview. So I don't know, Jeff, do you ever use testing tools at all in your hiring process? Like there's
Myers-Briggs.
Huh?
Yeah, like that. What is that? That
Myers-Briggs.
Myers-Briggs. What is it?
Myers-Briggs.
What is it?
Myers-Briggs. It's
Myers-Briggs. I never could say that right. Probably 20 years ago, I did. I did really just trust my intuition more than anything, and maybe that's, a bad thing. But I've been around for a long, second generation hairdresser, so I've seen a lot of hairdressers in and out. So I just trust my intuition a lot more than a test.
And your intuition is probably based on some of those facts that you've learned and studied over time. You just don't necessarily know all the letters, the IGF and whatnot that they have to be. And there's so many different ones out there. I think it plays a part and a tool that can support, especially those at the beginning of their ownership career, still trying to figure it out. Tools are not a bad thing sometimes. I think when you're a veteran like Jeff and second generation like he and I both are, we've kind of seen the good, bad, and the ugly.
And I think too, you have to be able to determine what's missing in that team environment, because we kind of put it into this classification that, oh, I just need another hairstylist. I need a chair filled. I have clients that can't get appointments, or I need to build more clients and I'm not doing a very good job of that master growth that I'm expecting to have each year. And we really need to look at, are you building a team that can sustain the environment and the culture and your business and your clientele? We just assume that everybody needs to be a rock star, but sometimes you need those ones that are more conservative, that are more internalized and introverts versus extroverts, because not every client wants to be with a stylist that's all tatted up and loud.
Correct.
They might be looking for someone that is more subdued and maybe more mature even in their approach, and they're not even having anything to do with their skill set. So I think sometimes we need to really look at like those, the Myers-Briggs, the DISC, all of those things. We need to look at how do we create a well-rounded team that balances my business. I
need quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, everything.
That's so true.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's exactly right.
That's a big part of it. The funny thing is if you look at like some of the interviewing questions, if you shift those up a little bit, you will get different answers to be able to determine then that intuitive side that Jeff talks about. Is this the right fit for me? Because I think we want everybody kind of like with the same set of skills and the same approach to being able to grow and succeed in our business. But sometimes you have to shift the way that you ask the questions to get a little bit of a different response system. And that's going to give you that awareness of, okay, I really feel like this person could be a good fit for my salon. And I always say that there's like 4 types of questions, but one of them is very powerful in an interview, because we also, if we're talking about hiring, you also need to make sure that you're going back and being very clear about your hiring practices in your state, and that you're following the guidelines of HR practices, because we are in an industry, other than corporate organizations, we're an industry with no HR monitoring. So we're probably making, mistakes that are bound to be illegal all along the way. And so I always say that one type of question that you need to ask is what I call an open information question. And it's an open-ended question, but a story is attached to it. And the story creates a lead to the type of answer you're looking for. So let me give you an example of that. We all know that, in our business, that working evenings and working weekends is pretty much how you succeed, right? Like, that's part of it. But we also know that that could pose a problem for people that have families and children and need to pick up their kids, and, soccer on the weekends or whatever those things are, baseball for people like Kim and I. And those were things that really played into it. It's like, I'm not willing to sacrifice my life and my family sometimes for the job, but I also understand the job role on it. An open information question supports who you are. So it talks about your brand, a little bit about your culture, and leads the question so they're answering it in a way that isn't illegal. So you could say, we're a very family-oriented organization. So we have many team members here that have young kids and children. So we try to be as flexible as we can with the schedule when we need to. But as a first-time employee to this, we really are looking for someone to make a commitment to the schedule that we're offering right now. Do you see any problems with that? So if they have no kids, they're going to say, nope, all good. I don't have any children or anything that would interfere with that schedule. Boom, I got my answer. Or they say, oh, that's so great to hear. I have 2 young kids that I have to pick up from school, and I wanted to be able to see if we could work on a schedule that could work. Now I know. Now I know if this is going to be the right person with a fit. So you're creating that open information environment to get the answers you need based on finding the right person in there.
To piggyback on that, Bonnie, I love that. It's interesting to see the variety of cultures that are available out there as a salon structure and opened hours. And one of my dear friends, and she's actually a member of Intercoiffure now. She got pinned last year by Candy, as a matter of fact, I believe. And she has a salon in Virginia, and they are so family oriented that they close at I think they close at 2:00 on Saturdays. They're closed twice during the week by 3 p.m. And they are providing that entire culture of family, so these people can get out and be that parent and mommy and daddy, etc., all week long. And then that allows them to really commit to the other days at another 110% for the long days. And it's just become this, and that's, the clients have to accept those are the open hours of this particular business. And they're $1 million salon, they're thriving. So
exactly. Because they're very clear on who they are.
Correct.
And they're going to hire people that also fit within that gauge of who they are. And, it goes the opposite way. Let's say that you're concerned about hiring somebody that might have kids. And we all know you can't ask them, well, how many kids do you have? Do you have young children at home?
How many do you want?
Ask those questions in an interview. They're illegal. So you have to then be able to say, a very young, hardworking, aggressive team that they're willing to put in all the hours that it takes. And we're open 7 days a week at this location, so we're looking for somebody that's going to be able to really fit in that environment of being super aggressive at building their clientele. Does this sound like you? And they're going to say, well, I don't know that I can, work 7 days, and they're going to guide you into that next piece. And if you just have really good listening skills, the answer is always in how you're setting up that question in that story.
I think you can also weed out some of the looky-loos in your ads. And, I think what some people don't do well enough and strong enough is create it to be difficult to get hired at your company. And if you make it really strong on the front load, then that takes that funnel down to the people that really kind of fit with what the structure says so far.
Yes, exactly. When you know who you are, you sell your brand, and then those people that align with your brand, those are the ones that start showing up, that you can invest the quality time into looking at them being a part of your team.
And then those who are challenged by a 40-hour week, et cetera, these days, you know, I have I did an interview a couple weeks ago with my friend's son, who is a millennial, in my SMART group. And it changed a lot of my emotion and feeling around millennials. It was great for me to hear. And he's 24. He's been to 32 countries already. This guy is like the unicorn of millennials. But he made me understand his generation a lot better. And he used this terminology I had not heard before called the gig economy, that these millennials are in the gig economy. And his reference was to like Uber and Lyft and stuff like that, that they can become a member of that job force, and they could choose to take a job whenever they want. They might start at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. They might work till midnight, and they get to kind of work around their life. And so, you know, if we take that to heart as owners and try to maybe accommodate that style, I think the split shifting, creating shifts at the salon might serve us as well. You know, instead of me, because I was like, you know, they're going to conform, and it's not. We got to meet them where they're at, or we're really going to be going uphill for a long time to come.
Right. So that level of independence and freedom they're looking for, but you got to be really clear on what your particular culture is in that moment.
Correct.
If it exists like that, or how it exists in that realm. Yeah. Yeah, because I think what we do is we all understand, you know, yes and no questions and open-ended questions. But open-ended questions, you know, listen, if I say, hey, where do you want to be 5 years from now? They'd be an idiot not to say, in a growing, amazing company like yours. You know, that I don't want to hear that. That gets me nowhere as far as an owner trying to create and determine if this person's the right fit for me, if they all know the right answers to the questions I'm asking. So as salon owners and leaders, we need to ask better questions so that we can get to the part where we then instinctively know this is the right person. I've narrowed it down. I've asked the right questions, and I feel like this is the right person in the right mix for my team.
Amen.
Yeah, I want to say, you know, going back to something that Bonnie said, I have a saying, and maybe you all have heard it, and I didn't coin it, but I don't know where I got it, so now I stole it. Hire hard so you can lead easy. And, you know, for us, for my salon, I ended up with a 4-part hiring system. And I think the final part of that was the shadow day, and Jeff touched on that too, having them come in for a period of time without technically being hired, but they're shadowing in our salon. They used to.
So incidentally, we pay them once they get through that first day. We pay them,
and that's good. So they come in and they shadow for a period of time without any commitment. And what that does is it brings somebody into your culture who's gone through the process, right? And they come into your culture, and there's also a thinking you lead the new horse out to pasture and see how they play with the other horses. And if they don't get along with the other horses, they might not be the best fit. And in my salon, within, and no joke, my salon, I had hard workers at my salon. We ran 2 shifts. We were open every day of the year except for 3, 7 days a week, 12-hour days, and 12-hour shifts. So we ran 2 shifts, 2 6-hour shifts, actually 7-hour shifts, because they overlapped because they had to clean and set up. And then there was, you know, huddle and all that stuff. And they could pick two shifts and work 12s, or they could pick a shift and work a 6. That's how I ran my salon. But I will tell you, it was super structured. everybody worked. There was no sitting around. One time I remember there was a girl who came in for a shadow interview and she sat at the shampoo bowl to relax. And I was over there cutting hair and my whole entire team looked over at me like aghast. They were like, oh my God, what's she gonna do? And I didn't do anything because they already did it for me. They already fired her. And they, at that shadow interview, it was them that had the final choice on who they wanted to work with. It wasn't me, because
A strong culture is self-policing.
It's and that was the beauty of, you know, and I worked really hard to create that structure and those systems and that mindset that they didn't want somebody on their team that wasn't productive, that was going to sit at the shampoo bowl just to chill. They knew exactly why you don't sit at the shampoo bowl and chill out. And so yes, it became self-policing. And then in that final interview, they had a choice, which gave them a voice, which goes back to that freedom to choose who you want to work with and who you don't want to work with. And here's the thing, I listened. No matter how much I liked them, I listened to their voice.
They have to work
always do what they wanted, not 100% of the time. Because sometimes, as to Bonnie's point, I was looking for somebody to fill a hole where they were weak, and to level out something. But, you know, we're going back to that team thing. You know, you don't need 10, you know, Oscar, I know you're a baseball player. You know, my kid's a baseball player. We're huge baseball fans. So I don't need 10 pitchers. You know, I don't need 10 catchers. I need a catcher. Well, I need a bullpen. And then I need a couple catchers, a first baseman, a second baseman. You know, I don't need all of one thing. So,
Correct.
You know, you do have to know what you want as a leader and what specific you're looking for. And I think Bonnie was talking about that, but you also have to give that team a voice of who they want to work with.
I concur.
I also wanted to say real quick, Bonnie was talking about HR practices and what you could say and what you can't say, and what you can ask. And like, why not, you can't ask somebody how old they are, you know, but you might be able to ask a question. And what does it even matter anyway, unless you're like me and you're just curious? Like, maybe I'm interviewing for you, Jeff, and you're curious, how old is that chick?
You know, it's like to just talk about the pitcher and the catcher and all that. I love everybody. You know, I want the mothers that have young kids, the single mothers. I want the seasoned hairdresser. I want people out of school. Because back in the day, and Kim, you remember back the Aveda salons, we all wanted like zen out, mellow people, well music and all that, and everyone was exactly the same. And one thing I learned, and I found it to be true, if everyone's the same in the salon at the same time, it's possible they can all hate you all at the same time. You've got 6 or 7 different kind of subcultures going on. Not it's one massive culture. It's like a big community. But if you've got 7 subcultures, you know, these may not be so happy once in a while. You know, these might not. These people will defend you. You know, it brings it all together. You know, it's not, if everyone's exactly the same, is disaster. And I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes salons make. We want all the right people on the bus, and there's different places on the bus. So.
Well, if we hired everybody that was like us, we'd have just a bunch of us. And frankly, sometimes I don't always like myself. So,
yeah,
you know.
I know what my weaknesses are. I need to fill that gap.
And as leaders, we do need to know that in creating a team. And I reiterate that all the time. As a leader, you need to know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are so that you can fill that gap. And that's part of creating a strong team, a strong management team, a strong leadership team, a strong culture, a strong organization, is that we have diversity our team. And I had a really great conversation with someone last week. Lisi, what's her last name? Fabio? Lisi,
Yeah.
Fabio?
Rico's wife, yeah.
Yeah. And they do fades, blades, and trades. And here's this, I don't know if you know who Lisi is, but I totally admire her for what she's done. She does some fantastic, what she does, I could never do. That's the thing. And so we had this great conversation for like an hour and a half last week, and we were talking about diversity. And she said, some people in the industry don't want diversity. Some people in the barber industry, they don't want Cosmos in it. And people in the Cosmo industry don't want diversity or don't want barbers in it. And I completely disagree with that. And here's why. Because, my thing is unity. It will always be unity. But unity doesn't mean non-diversity. Mm-hmm. You can have unity on a team that is completely diverse, because whether somebody's tatted up or a parent or never wanted kids, or they're 18 or 63, what creates respect, or what creates unity in diversity, is respect. And I have, with the conversation with Lisi, I have huge respect for her, even though we're completely opposite of the ends in a lot of ways. And so going to your point, Jeff, we want that diversity on our team. We want, if that's how I wanted it too, bring in everybody.
I know. Remember when the tattoos first started coming out, all of a sudden in the Aveda world, if you had something, because we were high dollar tattoos and stuff, and I was really nervous, and now there's plenty of people in there with tattoos, and they're some of the greatest hairdressers in the salon. It's amazing. If I would have said no to the tattoo, or not crazy stuff, maybe piercings, if it makes people uncomfortable and stuff, I understand that. And maybe next year I'll hire someone like that. I don't know, but that really changed the perspective, and different people are attracted, to Bonnie's point, to different people in the salon. So we want, to be able to service everybody.
Right.
Our brand.
You're clear who your clientele is, but you also have a diverse enough clientele that you have to have a diverse team to meet the needs of that. But you're pretty much clear on that. Great. I learned a lot. I hope everybody else did.
Yeah, absolutely. I just have one more thing to say that is kind of cool, that I heard, that I wish I would have known about when I had my salon, to meet the influencer of the people that you're hiring. So when you take the person on an interview of the salon, maybe even when they come in for their first interview and you take them on a tour of the salon, if you ask them to bring the most important person in their life with them, it gives you an opportunity to meet their influencer. Mm. And it tells you a lot about who they hang around with, who their influencer is. Is it their husband? Is it their wife? Is it their partner? Is it their friend? Is it their mother? Is it their father? It tells you a lot about that. And I never did that, but I heard that from actually Dave Ramsey, believe it or not. But I thought that was a fantastic idea. So I just wanted to throw that out there before we sign off.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. Yeah.
So does anybody have any last comments?
I'd say for me that in order to truly leverage your company and yourself as an owner is to, I always tell them to create mini me's of yourself. And I think a lot of them think that means just the money part. I need to go make 3 of me that generate X. And I said, yes, that's one component, but what also do you bring to the table? And then I let them itemize a bunch of the things that they bring to the table. And it's their leadership, and it's their compassion, and it's their willingness to work hard, and it's the sweeper and the cleaner and the cheerleader and the this and the that. I said, exactly. Now, having said that, that might be 7 new people you have to hire to create the mini me's of you. And that's what helps create the diversity in the company structure.
Yeah, be clear on who you are. That's the biggest one. If you are really clear on what your brand is and your culture and who your ideal client is, in other words, the majority of the clients that show up that are similar to each other, and it's going to be a lot easier than to define the right person that's going to fit all of those, the brand, the culture, and the ideal client.
Correct. Jeff, you were going to say something?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for letting me kind of come into the conversation. I appreciate that, Kim. Thank you, and Bonnie. And Oscar, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Love you, brother.
I think I just want to hire people that want to love their clients, because honestly, if you love your clients will love you back. And if you got the ability to do that, you're the right member for any salon, any place.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that.
As Sir Richard Branson says, take care of your team, and your team will take care of your customers.
Yeah,
that is so true.
Well, there's been some great wisdom here shared. We had a lot of people watching today. A lot of really nice comments from people. So I think this was helpful. I hope if you watch this after we sign off today, I'll post it on a couple of the forums. If you watch it after, please feel free to comment on anything. We'll try and get back to you later. This is the end of our 5-part master share with Bonnie, Oscar, myself, and Jared couldn't be here today because he's such a busy bee over here in LA. But I definitely appreciate you guys. I appreciate you, Jeff, today. And my kid's out there in Atlanta, so maybe I'll come. Maybe I should send him to you.
Anytime.
He just bought a couple beaters and he's looking for a straw hat, so I think he might need some levity out there.
You said before Jeff came on that Bonnie, you and I don't have all the answers, but once Jeff came on, yes, now we all do.
We had the answers, yeah. But we also asked good questions too.
Yeah, this was a really great quadrant. It was great, great insight there, Jeff. I really appreciate you coming on with us today. So you all have a great Monday, great rest of the week. If you need anything, you can always reach out to any of us. We're all here to answer any questions, to help you in any way. And we're signing off. Bye, guys.
Cheers,
bye, everybody. Thank you.
Cheers.